Almost 6 months ago, the Little Sioux River peaked at 33 feet in Correctionville, Iowa, flooding dozens of homes. The flood's impact is still felt today in the Woodbury County town. Just ask Governor Kim Reynolds, who toured the flood damage and talked with city officials today. KTIV's Morgan Jones has more.
With over 150 homes affected by historic flooding in Correctionville, Iowa, there is still work to be done to recover.
Our recovery is going to take time. It's going to take a long time. The people of the town just have to understand that we're doing the best we can. We're moving as fast as we can. We're moving as fast as the government lets us.
Governor Kim Reynolds spoke with city leaders about the financial struggle they face while rebuilding their town. You see, FEMA will only cover part of the cost to recover from flooding.
75% FEMA covered, and then the state does the 25, and we split with local. And then again, we'll look at what some of the other options are to help help in recovery, and as we talked about, kind of that gap in financing that some of our communities are experiencing. So we'll see what kind of programs we can put together and see what that looks like.
Once the meeting concluded, Governor Reynolds then traveled through the city to see the true impact the flood had on Correctionville residents.
The recovery, I think, is off to a good start.
Good start.
But still things that we need to look at. We're talking about bringing the team down and maybe sitting down and looking at ways that we can really collaboratively think about how we can rebuild, restructure, and hopefully grow.
You know, you can see that if you look out the street, you'd never know most of this had been flooded. But a lot of what we're dealing with now is what people can't see, and it takes a lot of time. And we're making progress, but it'll be a couple-year project.
Reynolds plans to return to Correctionville to talk more about plans to rebuild in Correctionville and other communities hit hard. In Correctionville, Iowa, Morgan Jones, KTIV News 4.